coming back. It might not look like that. This is part 2 of this segment. It might not look like that. Your traveling might not look like that. You may be traveling, but it may not look like that. I'm going to give you a minimized summary of what happened. That if you go to Max and Maya, I think it's Max and Maya Living or something like that, there is an intro video, and the intro video literally explains what happened. So you can watch that too. But I say look at these two because it lines up with the Mary and Joseph and the pregnancy. Okay? When they got married during the midst of CVD, is what we're going to call it. And she was traveling. She made the decision to abandon her home in LA. Y'all gonna end up abandoning where you were. You're leaving your situation. He's gonna actually leave his situation too. She ended up traveling to meet him. She rode cross country from LA to Canada. She was in the process of buying a new property in Sweden. But because of the fact she wasn't a resident there, but he was. So he had to go through the process. See how this works? She left her home. They hadn't gotten the home yet, and they're in the midst of transition. Married. So they end up, when they finally do get together, they make a stop. And I think they get married in Canada. I'm not sure. But they get married. After they get married, they bouncing. Because due to the fact that there were the CVD law restrictions at the time, because they were both from 2 different countries, you could not live in the same place if you were in 2 different countries, because he didn't have a visa for the United States and she didn't have a visa for where he lived at, which was Sweden. So they had to go to an intern place. And they had to stay there for a season in Mexico until the paperwork came through. And then they were jumped back and forth because they ended up going to Canada. They had to wait for his papers to come through. Once his papers came through, then they could finally go home. You see how many times they had to jump? What did Mary and Joseph have to do? They had to keep traveling. And while they were traveling, in the midst of that, she discovered she was pregnant. They hadn't gotten the official paperwork while they were in Mexico. She got pregnant. So they having to travel back and forth from Mexico to Canada to this place, back to Sweden, and they aren't sitting still. Mary and Joseph could not stay in the same place until that baby was born. She wanted to make sure that she got all of the medical care, so they ended up going to Sweden. They got the residency in to get back to Sweden, but she didn't want to go back to Sweden until after she had the baby, specifically because of the fact that in Canada, due to their medical procedural things, one, there were certain things she didn't have to take. 2, they had better health care. Okay? So because they had better health care, she felt more comfortable having a baby there. Mary had to go to Bethlehem. Getting back to the film, there was another video called, and it was on, it's 2 videos in relation to this. So One's on her page, one's on her and her husband's page. I'll try to link them. But that first one, I believe, is the one that you need to watch that I mentioned. They go a little bit deeper in it in that second video. But getting back to the film, Bella, as they get closer to her delivering, just like Mary, there's concerns. Mary, there was no space in the inn for her to go deliver. She couldn't deliver in a posh place. Some of y'all, you think that you getting married and you gonna have a baby, and the baby is going to come together the way that you would want it to. Some of y'all having multiples. Some of y'all gonna have to be traveling. You might not even be in the United States when you give birth to your children. I know for myself, the Lord gave me 4 different places. And I always thought it was weird that he was giving me 4 different locations. I think he added a 5th lately. So y'all might be traveling between multiple locations before you give birth. And depending on how many children it is, you may have to stay in the hospital. Because you know how they say when you get towards the end, especially a multiple birth, there's certain concerns. So either you're going to be in a isolated place, meaning towards the end of your pregnancy, you will be settled, but you're going to be in an isolated place that you can be moved to the hospital easily. Or they're going to put you in a private hospital. Because this pregnancy needs to be kept under wraps. Bella, as she was preparing to give birth, there was a feud between the 2 clans. There was always a feud between the 2 clans, the vampires versus the werewolves. But the werewolves wolf pack was trying to protect Bella. And they were more concerned about Bella's health than they were concerned about the vampires. Because they were saying that it was some type of created edict between them that if something happened, the wolves could take out the vampires. Point being, as you coming up on your pregnancy, there may be health concerns for you. There may also be the line of demarcation between your 2 worlds, meaning his world, your world, meaning your family becoming involved in your life, his family becoming involved in the life, and the spans of the transition between the 2, because you're also dealing with the fact that you will be getting married, but the question is, are you eloping first? And will this pregnancy happen over the time frame of the period between you actually getting married, meaning public ceremony? Or will you go through the factor of engagement, courtship, marriage, then pregnancy? Or will it be when you have your wedding, which I told you this in the prior part, you might be pregnant already. So it may be a case of, like they were saying in the earlier part of the film, is she pregnant? Why she get married so fast? Some of y'all's wedding plans, it's not to say that y'all not going to have the big wedding, but you may have it fast. Depending on what's going on with him is going to determine what's going to happen. Because he may say, nix the big wedding for now. We just going to elope. It may also be that he's just trying to engage to you and then because of what's going on, you may, in the midst of the courtship, be helping him deal with the breakdown of everything, coming back to the dual transformation. You're praying and helping him heal through the process while things are being stripped off of him. And this stripping is necessary for him before he enters into your marriage. Okay? And that healing process that you're helping him through is also part of this transitionary period. But there's also, Dana Ray released a video recently talking about she had a dream that she had gone on vacation and was sharing a room with her God ordained spouse, and her sister was between them. Sister actually means Christ, but they put the sister out. They put Christ out the situation because you may actually be in this transitionary period. He might be taking you places and y'all be in isolated circumstances because you traveling. You two may be in the same space together. And everybody said to be like, oh, y'all can't be in the same space together. This is why Elroy knows all things. He knows your level of temptation. He knows your husband's level of temptation. But at the same time, babe, this could get ugly if y'all ain't married when this goes down. Lord, you want me to review that song? Because I can. Because I need you to think about it like this. Follow me like this. If your husband is going through a level of stripping, some of them go to the book, The 5 Love Languages. Some of your God ordained spouse's love language is a bit of quality time, affirmation, and physical touch. If your God ordained spouse recognizes love as physical touch, you put yourself in a small space with this person and you're not married, and then y'all in isolation. Remember this. So y'all can't be, intimate. Elroy knows this. God will put it on that man's heart. If it truly is a scenario, because did we not just see at the very beginning of this film? Go back to the previous video where I was talking about what happened when they got to their honeymoon. They darn near tore that room up. You and your God ordained spouse would be in a pressure cooker. If you and him are in too close of a quarters, he frustrated, you frustrated because you frustrated for his frustration. What you think gonna happen if you two are in the same space? And you know you want it. You want it, he want it. Both of y'all want it just as bad. And if y'all been sitting on it, meaning you ain't had no intimacy for any amount of years. Some people have not had intimacy for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Some are counting up from 10. What you think gonna happen if y'all in a jump around season and you frustrated, he frustrated, and you know you want it? Christ needs to be between y'all, and you may need double rooms. Sorry. I remember growing up where they put you in a double room where the other person had an entry door to your hotel room from the inside, meaning your rooms were back to one another, and it was a door between the two rooms that you could go from your room to their room. You may need a double room where you're not in the same room with this person, but you have access to each other just for the safety of it, in the essence of y'all traveling. But you know the enemy gonna play with that, right? If you traveling, he might try to cause y'all a little bit of discomfort where it's like y'all set it up for it to be a double room, and it didn't work out that way, and y'all in a room with a king size bed. And then that becomes like that LL Cool J video. You know the video. I think it's not Paradise. It's I'm gonna have to look it up. Hold on one second. Love You Better from LL Cool J. Anybody remember that music video? He was trying to respect her separation, but you could see between the two of them, they was trying to avoid getting in bed together, which eventually, if you watched it long enough, you came to the understanding that they didn't resist it for very long. He laid on the front of the bed and she laid in the bed, but ended up coming to the point where they ended up sleeping together after all. Y'all can't put yourself in circumstances, and the enemy wants to put you in a pressure cooker. So pray. If you're supposed to elope and y'all supposed to be moving around, there needs to be a level of wisdom. But you got to pray about that. And you and him may need to pray about that too once this engagement comes to be. But some of y'all are supposed to elope because of the circumstance. If y'all go into a settled place, you may or may not need to do that. But you got to get instruction from the Lord as to how this happens. Because you do not want to mess with the sanctity of your relationship. Because you don't want to screw up what God has done with the both of you because y'all done got hot and bothered. Could you know the second that you and your husband get marry, it's all on for y'all. Y'all been wanting each other for the longest period of time. It's going to be hard to keep your hands off of each other. But if y'all in a pressure cooker, so in that transitionary season, seek the Lord. But a lot of people, some of you moving directly in with your spouse after your engagement. Some of you may be moving around just like Shameless Maya and her husband were moving around and got pregnant. Some of you may elope and still be moving around, but y'all can at least enjoy yourselves in the midst of that moving around. But with that, a pregnancy's gonna come. So y'all may still be moving around, but you'll get settled because the Lord knows when y'all need to be settled for that pregnancy. So I'm going to stop this video here and come back.